So it has come to this. The original individual time trial, race against the clock. 10 kilometers with no friends out there. Only your ability to cope. The time trial then to decide our champion, as if we didn't know already. It's been quite a race so far. We've had some amendments, as you know, early on. But really the race at the Adriatic is where we find our champion. It's been close in the past. This time, however, likely to be a done deal. Let's have a look at how they went. It did, of course, this race start off with an individual time trial after they had amended the course. It was supposed to be a team time trial. Many teams sent a powerful outfit. In the end, though, it came down to the individual. And one man was head and shoulders above everybody. The individual time trial champion of Italy did the job. Mallory was absolutely flying.
He certainly was. In front of his home crowd, he of course finished last year's race with a win in a time trial, which we've got exactly the same course today. Started off in exactly the same way, and there was one man who was very pleased that it changed from a team time trial to a prologue.
So we had our first leader, Adriano Mallory, and he would hold on to that jersey the following day as well. The run to Camaiore was brutalized by crashes. Plenty of them. It was one for the pace men, and in the end we had something of a surprise, courtesy of an unfortunate incident late on. Mark Cavendish was going for victory, unfortunately just through a chain. In so doing, veered and collided with Viviani. The pair of them coming down very, very late, and it opened the field wide open for others, maybe some unexpected names, to come to the fore.
Matt Goss then doing the lead out for his team, NTN Quebecer. Tyler Farrar coming off the wheel, and there was that nasty crash which saw Viviani come down at huge speeds. He carried on for another couple of days, eventually pulled out of the race. It opened the door, though, for this man to get probably the biggest win of his career. Jens Deboucher, Belgian national champion from Lotto Soudal, taking the win in front of Mr. Second Place at this period of time, Peter Sagan.
Viviani bruised and indeed sadly bowed. He was to bow out a couple of days later, as Stan has already said. And so we had the joy of the Belgian champion's jersey on display as stage winner. Mallory stayed in the blue leader's jersey for this race. And it was stage 3, always entertaining. Arezzo, one for the puncheurs, and Peter Sagan, could he make amends? It was a big question, and the answer, sadly for him, was no. As they took the final curve, well, they say if you come out of this in the lead, you're probably going to do well. And so it proved to be, with Greg van Avermaet taking over the leader's jersey after a very, very strong performance. Those last 200 metres, there was a lot of pressure out there.
Yeah, 200 metres was the last corner. Slight uphill finish here into Arezzo. Last year's winner, Peter Sagan, coming very, very strong on the right-hand side of your screens, but it wasn't enough to pip that man. Greg van Avermaet of Team BMC taking a really big win and a massive confidence booster ahead of the Spring Classics.
Indeed, he also took the blue jersey. So stage 4, Indicatore to Castel Raimondo, and the mountains did beckon. Some surprises, no surprise that Van Avermaet was going backwards, but it was down to an individual push, and what a push it was. Wout Pauwels decided to go early with around 6 kilometers to go, cresting the final peak, and just did not look back.
No, he left it late. We were expecting some attacks from the big guns. Wout Pauwels there going with around about 100 metres before the top of that climb. It was only 3 kilometres, but very, very steep, going up in steps. He took advantage of that final steep section to get quite a good gap on the riders behind, and despite a concerted chase on the descent, he managed to hold on to quite a lot of that gap, as you can see. Crossing the line for his first victory since swapping over to Team Sky for this season. What a victory it was, and of course he got the blue leader's jersey with it. Second place on the day went to Rigoberto Urán of Ethics Quick-Step, with Joaquin Rodriguez there in 3rd place.
Yes, finishing just ahead of Viamos, who would be busy later on in this race. Stage 5 then, heading for Terminillo, and, well, grisly conditions awaited. One man who was mauling the field was Nairo Quintana. Still not to the snow line, but he is known not to be shy of bad weather conditions, and I think that possibly played into his hands. Away he went, and in fact it was a display of power and sheer guts as he ate up the remnants of the breakaway. Scarponi the last to fall, and away he went. It was an outstanding performance.
It certainly was. We did have eyes on that man, of course. He's no stranger to doing well in snowy mountainous races. We saw that in last year's Giro d'Italia. And once he went up the road, they were never to see him again. He came up towards the snow line, and as the hill just slackened off slightly in the last 500 metres, he had a huge gap to the rest of his rivals. 39 seconds, in fact, it was to Bauke Mollema just behind him.
Bit of a cathartic moment for Quintana, who's suffered a little bit with tumbles, notably in the Colombian Championship. Mollema doing a great job, finishing 41 seconds down, but the lead for Quintana once everyone else was home. Rodriguez third, again ahead of Oran and Contador, but the margin 39 seconds, and he has brought that all the way to the last day's time trial, albeit with another racing stage to be contended with. And once again, horrible weather as we headed for Sant'Elpidio.
Yeah, many of the riders saying that actually yesterday's stage, as you can see on your screens right now, was in fact a lot harder and a lot colder than the one that finished up Terminillo into the snow. They spent their entire day riding in the rain, very low temperatures as well, around 4 or 5 degrees for the majority of the stage. Riders with many rain jackets all on top of each other, trying to stay warm. That man, Villamoz, was the last man to be brought back into the fold to a reduced peloton. Mark Cavendish and a number of the other sprinters were dropped earlier on in the stage, and in fact many of them didn't actually finish. So it was down to Tinkoff Saxo to try and lead out their national champion, Peter Sagan. But we also had MTN Quebec in the fold. They once again came to the fore in the last kilometres, doing a sterling lead-out. We were never sure exactly who that lead-out was going to be for. Matt Goss was in here, so too was Edvald Boasson-Hagen, so too was the man that they did eventually sprint for. Second place here at the moment, Ciolek, trying to get his first victory of the season, but Peter Sagan just coming around him. He wasn't able to respond, and Peter Sagan taking his first win since the National Championships 9 months ago.
So if it was a cathartic moment for Quintana, it certainly was for Sagan as well, the man who looks like he's wrapped up the red points jersey. But the win has been more important than that, and the smile on his face told its own story. So we come to the individual time trial to finish off this great race. And of course, mine's starting to cast ever further forward to the Milan-San Remo, which beckons next weekend. So it is individual time trial day. It is the race against the clock. And indeed, Luke Durbridge, Turbo Durbo, is out on course at the moment. Thoughts, though, cast to next weekend and the big one. We cannot wait. Milan-San Remo beckons. We have the tidy up, though, for the Tirreno-Adriatico. It's cloudy, temperature 13 Celsius. It's dry at the moment. Well, at least there's rain not falling. The surface is slightly damp. And this is, in fact, our straight out and straight back, near enough, run for today. 10 kilometres, slightly longer this route than it has been in the past.
Yeah, ever so slightly. Not a great deal of difference. We are going to see some slower times anyway due to the water on the road still. Just a couple of turns that they have to negotiate, but of course you lose a lot of momentum when you have to slow right down. We've had some pretty quick times posted nonetheless. 51.5 kilometres per hour is our leading time at the moment. That's been set by Bodnar of Tinkoff Saxo. On exactly the same time, just split by a few hundredths of a second, is Hepburn in second place of Orica Greenedge. And as you said, Carlton, it's his teammate Durbridge who's currently on the road at the moment.
If you like ironing, then this is a stage for you. Couldn't be flatter, frankly, so a good front to your shirt at the end of this. 10 kilometres with no rises and falls. It is coastal, of course. The race between the Mediterranean and the Adriatic kind of badges up the race. So we have reached the Adriatic, and we've had some good times so far, Dan.
Yeah, just going through shots a few seconds ago was Iritzar from Trek Factory Racing. He currently sits in third place provisionally, 11 seconds down on our current leader. Here we're looking back at the start of Michael Hepburn, the young Australian from Orica Greenedge. As I said, he came through eventually in a time of 11 minutes and 39 seconds. Was fastest at the intermediate time check as well. And there you see it, exactly the same time, as I said, as Bodnar, but, well, not quite exactly. Bodnar just a few hundredths of a second ahead of the Australian in this race at the moment.
Tinkoff Saxo did a fantastic job of teeing up Peter Sagan yesterday. They'll be doing a similar kind of job, I am sure, or attempting to do so when it comes to Milan-San Remo. Some news, incidentally, is that Nibali has confirmed that he will be going. Had been some question marks about it, but he feels like he's on good form. And I guess after getting through the Tirreno-Adriatico and its grisly weather conditions, he probably feels justified in taking a step forward. He may well have done so in terms of form, even this early in the season, in a busy Grand Tour year, naturally. Massage Bodnar then is our leader, and the yellow and blue of Tinkoff Saxo have been quite to the forefront within this race, have they not? Yeah,
they've been doing a sterling job for their two leaders, Alberto Contador, who wasn't quite able to finish things off for them a couple of days ago into Terminillo. Peter Sagan, though, did finish things off finally for them yesterday after they led him out for his stage win. And this man currently sitting at the top of the table in the hot seat as the leader of today's final time trial. Bodnar, a rider on good form at the moment. He was second overall in the Tour of Qatar behind Nicky Terpstra, and that was courtesy of a great time trial that he did over there too. Similar length, in fact, to today, although they did have to use road bikes over there in Qatar rather than the time trial machines that you see today. Confirmation of the provisional standings, and Bodnar on the same time as Hepburn, just split by a few hundredths of a second. Iritzar third, Chris Jensen, real machine from Tinkoff Saxo in fourth, and the veteran Belgian Stijn de Volder there in fifth place.
So we are now live as the action gets underway, and what a time to join proceedings with Mallory deramping and going for it. Of course, he won the shorter, almost half the distance of the initial individual time trial, which turned into a prologue once the team time trial, unfortunately, was blown asunder by a hurricane that came through and damaged roads, brought down concrete lampposts, trees, damaged the surface as well. So it really was not a safe thing to do, a team time trial. And in fact, had anyone come off then, I think the organisers would have felt aggrieved that they hadn't amended it. So taking the chance to do so, they did. And an individual time trial topping and tailing the race between the two seas. And to some, that's a big advantage. Likewise, for those who still have podium places to think about, there's a lot at stake. Notably, Steve Cummings, looking forward to seeing him go for MTN Quebec later on. I know a lot of you down there on the tip of Africa, in South Africa, very much looking forward to seeing how Steve Cummings performs, and he could take a big step forward. Adam Yates, we remind you, is also extraordinarily well placed. It's been a very good race, not only for Orica Greenedge Down Under, but for MTN Quebec of South Africa. I'm looking forward to seeing how both of those riders riders will perform here.
Yeah, it's going to be a big day for both of them. Stephen Cummings in with a shout of a top 5 overall if he rides very well today. He's in 9th place at the moment at 1 minute and 12 seconds from Quintana. But we look down the standings, it's only around about 15 seconds up to Thibaut Pinot, who sits in 4th on the overall classification. Steve Cummings is a strong time trialist. It would be amazing for MTN Quebec if they did manage to get a rider in the top 5 overall. They've been performing very well on all of the stages, really. Mine Keys has been doing well with the mountains, and they've had that lead-out train going very well as well on the opening road stage and again yesterday. So they've got plenty of positives out of this race already, and they'll just be looking forward to, or hoping to finish it off in the way that they've been riding for the rest of the race.
Alexei.
So we are through 77 riders off the line thus far. We are in stage 7, the final stage of the 2015 Tirreno-Adriatico in San Benedetto del Tronto. We'll be right back on Bein Sports. Was the stage 1 winner, taking that opening time trial, the prologue of this competition. He is out on the road right now. Your current leader, though, Masic Bodner. One announcement to make: Mark Cavendish did not start today for Ethics Quick Step. Carlton Kirby and Daniel Lloyd have your details. Let's get back down to the race.
Well, you're getting your first view, I suspect, for many of you, of the long run to the line. There are a sequence of cameras, incidentally, and so until you see the barriers, you'll know that he's still a long way out. And Luke Durbridge doesn't look overly stressed at the moment. Actually, let's change that. Maybe he is. There's been a lot of complaints about the weather, but there's not much you can do about that when the race sits where it does in the calendar. No,
it's always one that can go either way when you're racing in March. It doesn't really matter which part of Europe you're in. You know, of course, you can get days where you're sat outside in shorts and short sleeves at this time of year, but we've had some pretty cold weather conditions, of course, up Terminillo, where we saw quite a lot of snowfall in the latter part of the stage than yesterday, which was absolutely freezing for the riders. Quite a number actually pulled out of the race yesterday during the stage itself. Some didn't sign on in the morning, so a reduced number of riders taking the start of today's final time trial.
Luke Durbridge, along with Matt Hayman, in a two-man breakaway on stage 4, if we remind you, and got themselves into a bit of bother, had a bit of a tumble, and Luke clearly not bad. Top 10 for the time being, but yeah, was it Luke that had the damaged ear? It looked like he'd gone down Superman style, and wasn't exactly super. He was really looked to be suffering out there. Both he and Matt Hayman taking a tumble. Didn't actually hear if they'd collided or not, because they both went down at the same point, clearly.
Yeah, we didn't see it. It was just before we came on air, wasn't it? But well, luckily they were both able to carry on, and they did a pretty good job that day. Just the two of them out front, with BMC chasing very hard behind. And talking about BMC, here's Alessandro De Marchi, who was in that breakaway, you'll remember, a couple of days ago on the way to Terminillo. Very, very strong rider. Came over from the Cannondale squad, and yeah, a key part of BMC's new signings this year.
Yes, he did a great job on stage 7 into Alcadetti on the Giro last year, you might remember. And yeah, he is a real powerful character. I'm not sure whether he's going to feature in the top 5 today, because there's a lot at stake. All right, Quintana may well be our champion in waiting, but, you know, movement within the top 10, we're going to see plenty of it today.
A lot to fight for. If we just remind you of the overall classification, Quintana 39 seconds ahead of Bauke Mollema, and then it's, what, 9 seconds between Mollema and Oran, another 9 seconds from Oran to Pinot, 6 seconds from Heed to Contador, just 1 second between Contador then and Yates, a further 2 to Pozzovivo, a further 1 to Rodriguez, and a further 5 to Steve Cummings. So there's a lot to play for in that top 10, certainly between kind of 2nd and 9th position. So we'll see how these guys get on today. Quintana last year did a good time trial here. I think he was 21st, I was looking last night. Beats the likes of Contador, beat the likes of Uran as well, who we've been speculating could put a little bit of time into his rivals today. So it will be an interesting one, slightly longer than last year, but I don't see Quintana losing much time to his key rivals today.
Well, very much looking forward to seeing how they go. Just check out the stages for you from last year in a few moments' time. The individual time trial, once again, San Benedetto del Tronto. It seems to be a almost traditional now that we finish here. The Adriatic coast is a long one, but We are well hosted, I've got to tell you. It's always a pleasure to have a hotel that overlooks the finish line as well, just speaking from a personal point of view. Kites is doing a good job here. He's into the hoardings right now, and he's reasonably well placed. Good run.
Yeah, he was 11th at the intermediate check at 13 seconds, so he's doing a reasonable job here. He's the best placed of Lotto Jumbo on that opening prologue, so he's obviously a strong time trialist. It won't be long, though, before we do start to see Adriano Malori coming towards the line. He's gone through that first check in a time of 4 minutes and 53 seconds, which puts him 3 seconds in front of Bodnar at that point. So let's see how he gets on this homeward leg, but fully expecting Malori to set the initial best time. Just as he finishes, we'll see Fabian Cancellara rolling off the start ramp.
Big Fab, as he is. Malori taking it last year, incidentally. We were looking at where Quintana had finished. Quintiato got 8th place that day. That was not bad at all. A Turbo Durbo got himself a top 10. Adriano Malori, looking at him right now, and yeah, he put a lot of big time trialing names to shame, did he not, last time? Cancellara, Wiggins, Tony Martin, Tom Dumoulin. He really did rip it up. Local knowledge does count for something, but I'm not sure how familiar. Well, he probably is familiar with this course now because it's been part of his winning palmares. It's not an easy thing to settle yourself onto a time trial bike, is it? But he does a good job of it. Yeah,
he's really churning a huge gear over, though, isn't he? It's unusual, actually, to see a time trialist specialist like Malori get out of the saddle like he just did out of that corner, trying to get back up to speed. It's slightly slower on the homeward leg. They're averaging, well, he averaged 54 k's per hour to the first time check. They have to go through a few corners. Current time and speed of the winner, of the leader here at the finish, Bodnar, 51.5. So it is a tough homeward leg. You need to save something to make sure you can still get the power down on the way home.
We have had some very close finishes. We remind you of 2012 when Nibali edged Chris Horner to take the title. It was a run of great form for Nibali, which of course concluded with, well, not concluded, but the last chapter was the Tour de France victory. And Vincenzo has said that he will be going to the Milan-San Remo. It's a late announcement, that, or a late confirmation. Yeah,
I was reading that he said he's not sure why he's going, because without the Le Mani climb, which was the biggest one, they've taken that out. So it is just the Cipressa and Poggio, which was we've seen many times over the recent years. The sprinters are capable of getting over that, and it's very, very difficult as a climber to get rid of the guys, even though they're reasonably long climbs. I think Cipressa's over 5Ks, but just not quite steep enough, really. You know, here's Malori just coming up to the 1K to go banner.
Well, they have handed out flags to the mini tribune that we've got at the finish line here. Give a grown man a flag, and he probably will wave it. And it has got the Tirreno-Adriatico on one side and the Italian flag on the other. And I think they want a nice pictorial welcome for the Italian time trialing champion. It'll be a decent run, and it's his last chance to sort of wave his own banner, I guess, right now. A couple of stage wins would be nice, and he clearly means business.
Yeah, he's almost sure to set the benchmark for everybody else, and going to be hard for anybody to beat him. He's, as I said, won this race last year, this stage, and the opening prologue. He's clearly a man on form. Perhaps the only person that might be able to come close is Fabian Cancellara, and as I said, he'll be just going down the start ramp not long after Malori comes in here.
This is that little jink in the road, and when the finish line gets a full view of him, and you know, Bodnar's time is going to be quite a decent one. He's still got just over 100 meters to go out of the saddle, really driving it on through the puddles which still grace the tarmac right now. He's going to take the lead, and Malori once again sets the mark for everyone else to beat, and his race speed 52.4 kilometers per hour. And what a fantastic finish time that is. 11:27, not bad.
52.4 k's per hour average. Last year's time for him gave him a 53.5 k an hour average speed at the finish. But yeah, slightly longer course, and of course a lot wetter. Here is Fabian Cancellara, number 211 on his back. Trek Factory Racing, the Swiss national time trial champion. Got an amazing position on his bike, isn't he?
Yeah, just absolutely as near perfect as you can get. If you think of a champagne bowl.
So Adriano Malori does it again, sets the fastest time, also took the first stage. Fabian Cancellara actually came in second place in stage one. We'll see if he can do it again or do better. We'll be right back on Bein Sports. Welcome back to stage 7 of the 2015 Tirreno-Adriatico. Fabian Cancellara out on the course right now in the stage 1 time trial. He finished 2nd place behind Adriano Malori. Malori, by the way, just crossing the line with the best time so far, 11 minutes and 27 seconds, 9 seconds faster than Maciej Bodnar, who is his closest challenger. Carlton Kirby and Daniel Lloyd have your call. You're watching Tirreno-Adriatico on Bein Sports.
On the bike later on, because otherwise, if he didn't manage to find those 2 millimeters back, he's going to be quite crunched on the bike.
It is a difficult one, actually. The UCI, of course, bringing in fairly stringent rules to prevent people doing something like the Superman position or the praying mantis, which Levi Leipheimer, etc., were using back in the day. So there do have to be rules in terms of the position on the bike, but it does mean that sometimes if you're just on the crest of being deemed very tall, like Steve Cummings is, it can be quite a disadvantage and you can feel quite cramped on the bike.
So, bearing in mind that MTN Quebec have got great ambitions for Steve Cummings, and a top 5 they think is within grasp, it'd be a bit of a shame if he's not at his most comfortable, and 10 kilometers is going to seem like a country mile for them, or several country miles, I'm afraid, if he's not comfortable on the bike. And for the time being, it doesn't look like he's going to be. He will go off 9th from last, Steve Cummings, and we look forward to seeing him and which bike he's got. As you can see from the sea, the Adriatic here, it's the groins have done their job to take away the waves, but it's a lot calmer, and all of a sudden it just feels a little bit warmer as the wind swings round to a gentle southerly. Not quite a sou'wester yet. That's going to blow up again during the week, but there is the threat of sunshine. you never know. Kirienka then was your man at the split. Let's talk about negative splits, shall we? Because Cancellara is renowned as being a man who turns on the taps late on.
Yeah, he was 3rd at the time check, 4 minutes and 54, 2 seconds down on Kirienka, 1 second down on Malori. So this is going to be a lot closer today than I was expecting. Kirienka is hugely strong in all disciplines of cycling, but yeah, to be in front of the likes of Malori and Cancellara is exceptional, even for he. So let's see how he gets on the homeward stretch.
Cancellara absolutely rock solid. Even look at the hand position here. He thinks about this a lot, and he puts his wrists and sort of flattens out, sort of smooths out his hands. He sort of hides the fingers, as you can see, and it's almost the ultimate time trialing position. If you can match this, you would be Cancellara, of course. So I'm not saying don't try and get as close as you can. It's always strange looking at people who are very, very good time trialists, and Bradley Wiggins is a lot more eel-like on the bike. He has a lot more movement, but somehow just manages to get the very, very best out of his machine. Tony Martin, I always think, looks extraordinarily uncomfortable. He has a big hooped spine, does our Tony, but nonetheless, he still delivers the power. So I guess power and position is the ultimate combination, and that's what Cancellara seems to have. Whether he'll have the beating of everybody else today remains to be seen, but I think he'd like a scalp. He'd love a stage win, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he certainly would. Here comes Navadauskas then. Let's see how well he's gone on the homeward stretch. Doesn't look like he's going to upset Adriano Malori today. Let's remind you that he went through the intermediate check in 4th place, 4 minutes and 55 seconds, 3 down on Malori. He's already gone past the time of Malori, though, at the finish.
Well, there's your view. You get about 280 meters of straight after that final little kink. Navadauskas 4th, and there's plenty of riders absolutely locked together. And if you can't beat Bodnar, you're not going to beat Hepburn because they're so close. It's thousandths of a second between them. So Navadauskas 4th quickest so far with an 11:40. Malori's benchmark of 11 minutes and 27. Outstanding. Incidentally, Malori only 2nd quickest at the split with a 4:53. He was beaten by a second by Kirienka at that point. So a drying road, that's going to favour some of the late runners.
Yeah, maybe that is something which will be factored into today's stage. It's always a little bit unfair in a time trial if the weather conditions change significantly. There aren't a huge number of corners on this course, but there are enough to make a difference. This is the man on the left of your screen, Kirienka, just going underneath 1K to go. He was the fastest at the intermediate check, 54.246 kilometers per hour he'd averaged by that point. Another rider who looks like he's churning a huge gear. Let's see what time he can do at the finish here.
Yeah, certainly the road just, it's patchy at the moment. As you can see, it is drying out. There is actually a reasonable amount of heat now with what is a very, very light breeze. If I had to guess at a speed, I would say probably just about walking pace, so virtually nothing to it at all, so less than 5 kilometers per hour at the moment. And this will be a good time. We haven't got a clock rolling on him for the time being, and finally we get one. And he's already in the hoardings, and mouth agape. He's really putting plenty into this Kiryenka. Rounds that final bend with 250 meters to go. He's not going to beat Mallory by the looks of things, so it looks like the negative split employed by Mallory, which kept something in the back for the late run, has stood the test. Will he hold on to second? It's very, very tight at this point. Just what a fantastic performance by Vasyl Kiryenka, who, let's not forget, has put in an awful lot of effort in the high stuff and the grisly weather conditions for his team over the last few days. Good work. Kiryenka second quickest, but giving away 5 seconds to an outstanding time set by Mallory, but still putting some distance, 7 seconds between himself. 7 seconds. Maths failing me. Between the chasers, Bodnar and Hepburn. This is Fabian Cancellara, and as suspected, just late on in the run, he just starts to snake ever so slightly. But look how he snakes, and the bike stays reasonably stable. Lateral movement on the front is what you don't want. He's got a little bit of that starting to be reflected now as he comes to the Flamme Rouge, but still outstanding.
This is going to be close, I think. I timed Mallory through the last kilometre. It was about 1 minute and 4 seconds. Which would mean that Fabian would be very, very close to taking this if he does the same time and he hasn't started to die a little. This is going to be interesting to see.
Just look at his cadence as well. It's a completely different setup, and it looks like this may well have the beating of Mallory. It's going to be close. Still not out of the saddle. He very rarely does that because he's got so much power in the correct position, and he's prepared to invest in it in terms of belief. Now, he does have to make that final turn, and he is into the hoarded section right now. Fabian Cancellara, it's a very, very gentle turn, but it does give us a clear view, heads up at the line. And here it is right now, 250 meters to go. This is going to be very close.
This is going to be very close indeed. In fact, I think possibly Fabian might be doing this.
This is fantastic. 100 meters to go. I think he will. I think he's going to trim it by about 3 seconds. He keeps the drive going. Last puddle to be dealt with, and he sails through that. And Fabian Cancellara is going to have this. Oh, look at that. 4 seconds gap between he and the best of the rest. Fabian Cancellara has delivered.
Well, that was impressive. Of course, lost out to 1 second by 1 second to Mallory in the opening prologue, and he was a second down on him at the intermediate check, pulled back 5 on the homeward stretch. I have to say I wasn't expecting that today.
Well, terrific. Fabian Cancellara done a great job, incidentally, on behalf of Bauke Mollema to get him back and retrieve a situation.
So there's a surprise. Fabian Cancellara, who finished in second place in the time trial that started out the Tirreno-Adriatico this year, finished second to Mallory that day. This day, he beats Mallory's time by 4 seconds. We'll be right back with more. You're watching Bein Sports. Peter Sagan out on the road today. He was your stage 6 winner. We're here at the closing stage of the 2015 Tirreno-Adriatico on Bein Sports. Your current leader in this final time trial, Fabian Cancellara, with a time of 11 minutes and 23 seconds, 4 seconds better than Adriano Mallory, who took stage 1 as a time trial as well. This one's just a bit longer. Peter Sagan out on the road. Let's get back to Carlton Kirby and Daniel Lloyd with your race call.
Sunday's Milan-San Remo, so if you're not a rider who's a specialist in the time trial, then it can be quite hard to push yourself 100%. We've seen it from Cancellara. He's, of course, one of the big favourites for Sunday's race. A winner of Milan-San Remo before. We saw Peter Sagan on our screens a few moments ago. He's probably the favourite for Sunday's race, despite the fact that he's never won it before. He's come close. Ciolek, the man he beat yesterday, of course, pipped into the post a couple of years ago, much to his disappointment. But he'll be coming back on Sunday looking to try and make amends. And this man will be there as well, Greg Van Avermaet, the winner into Arezzo on stage 3.
Greg Van Avermaet is thinking, of course, about the Low Countries, and the grizzly weather doesn't seem to bother him a little bit. Well, certainly bothers others more, I guess you might say. Bike handling skills, brilliant. He's also, of course, had the leader's jersey during this race. He's not going to let any bombs off today, but it's been good to see him on such good form at this part of the season, which is crucial for him.
Yeah, certainly is. He'll be extremely motivated, particularly for the cobbled classics, which are, of course, you know, the E3, but the main ones being Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. Big point in the season for Greg Van Avermaet, and a big point in his career, I think, as well. He's very close to 30 years of age now, and he'll be looking to try and convert some of the second places, etc., which he seems to keep getting in those big races, into wins this year.
Well, both he and Sepp van Mark, I guess, also with designs on greatness. It's always a hard thing to shake off when you are in eternal second place. We've talked about Rodriguez in the past, and of course we thought that Sagan was being wounded by this constant, and in fact when you look at the stages here, he finished runner-up to Debochet on the sprinters' day, he finished runner-up to Van Avermaet on that day for the punchers, then finally came good on a day where he really wasn't supposed to. But so many sprinters had been hurt by Tinkoff Saxo's great push, which split the peloton, and in fact some great names and those who would have been contesting the sprint, including Mark Cavendish, just cast asunder, and he didn't stepped off the bike as well. Greg Van Avermaet heading for a top 10, is he? It might just slip. Gets there. Not bad at all. Van Avermaet, 7th place, 27 seconds though down on Cancellara, and that just speaks volumes about what Cancellara has been doing on a time trial bike. No disrespect to Greg Van Avermaet, that was a pretty feisty performance, but our benchmark so far looks very good. Yeah,
it does. He's a man back to his former self, is Fabian Cancellara at the moment, in terms of a time trialling ability at least. He's been doing very well in the monuments for years and years and years. He's, of course, a rider who's won the time trial world championships on multiple occasions, but he just hasn't quite been able to really convert things in time trials the last couple of years when faced with the likes of Mallory, Bradley Wiggins and Tony Martin. But certainly looks determined this year, Fabian Cancellara. He had said in interviews that he really wants to convert or really wants to make more race wins this year, even if it's slightly smaller than the likes of Milan San Remo, the Tour of Flanders and Paris-Roubaix. They are still his biggest goals of the year, but he will take some wins along the way, is what he said, and he's been doing that already in Oman and looks likely to do that again today.
Brent Buchwalter of the United States for BMC just gets himself off the ramp and just tries to get the drive into the back wheel as quickly as possible. Not overly technical, the course this year. There is this little shimmy that has extended it ever so slightly. It used to be about 9.6. I think we found about 600 or 800 meters extra this time by. Very familiar backdrop though to the finish of the Tirreno-Adriatico. And I do like San Benedetto del Tronto, and I particularly like a little restaurant that we found a couple of years ago. It's run by a pair of SpongeBobs. They don't know, don't worry. They only speak Italian, so they're not listening to us. Some octogenarians run this amazing little cafe. Sorry, it's a restaurant. But it looks like a cafe. You go in there, it's strip lights and everything, and we sat ourselves down on a Monday evening when it was the only place open, and we sat down rather in a curmudgeonly fashion, thinking, oh, this is going to be terrible. And the lady came up, and we were taller than her while we were sitting down, and she said, there's no well, in Italian, there's no menu, you just have to have what we're cooking. And the plates just kept coming, 7 of them in all, with wine. I think we walked out paying 18 euros and felt thoroughly happy. We refound it this year, took some of our Italian friends who also looked a bit grumpy when they sat down. We all walked out very happy once again. So yes, it's called the Garibaldi, by the way, is the restaurant, and it is fantastic. I put an address up on Twitter, a little picture for you, so you can do it as a keepsake if you're in this part of the world. Amador rounds the headland, as it were, with a last straight view of the finish line. And yes, it's not a bad time, I've got to say, for Amador, but we've had some stunning ones so far. The best benchmark is Cancellara, and it looks like his time may well stand. But a top 10 for Amador, and that's a good run.
Yeah, he did very well here on this stage, I remember a couple of years ago, because I was surprised at the time at just how quick he went. But yeah, he did a good return leg there. He was 10th at the intermediate sprint, intermediate time check. coming in there in 7th place provisionally, but a full 25 seconds down on Fabian. And as you said, Carlton, the more riders who come in, the more we realise just how well Fabian was going today.
Yes, have you managed to recover from your dinner last night?
I'm kind of getting there, yeah. Things are slightly less hazy now than they were this morning.
There was a birthday party went on at the restaurant, and the drinks kept getting bought and handed round, and I had so many that I gave away an official official jersey to the birthday boy. He was very pleased. He actually couldn't quite believe it. I haven't seen him trying to sneak into restricted zones with it, which is good, because the jerseys will change for the Giro. But yeah, I'm already wondering why on earth I did that. I think it's possibly something to do with the multiple limoncellos that came our way last night. Very, very nice place. If you'd like to join the conversation or indeed find out where that restaurant is, then don't forget Twitter at Carlton Kirby, CarltonKirby, or at Daniel Lloyd 1. Please put the 1 on the end, because there's another Daniel Lloyd who's getting very fed up getting all these questions. Did you find out which country he's from, the original Dan Lloyd, on Twitter?
No.
No, but he's grumpy wherever he is.
Scandinavian, I think.
There we are. It's Scandinavian?
Don't know.
Anyway, it's DANIELLLOYD, so 3 L's in the middle, and please put the number 1 on the back, otherwise it goes through to a rope maker in Lithuania.
Well, American Brent Bookwalter is out on the road. He was the 103rd rider off the line. About 105 riders have gone out onto the road. We'll be back with more coverage from Stage 7 of the Tirreno-Adriatico on Bein Sports. Getting a look now at Peter Sagan, who came in with a time of over 14 minutes. Good for about 95th place thus far. Taking it easy today after a dramatic stage win yesterday, his first stage win in 9 months. But as you can see, not the best time, 14 minutes, 22 seconds. Good for 95th place as he comes across the line. Your current leader, by the way, Fabian Cancellara, Adriano Malori, the stage 1 time trial winner, is in second as it stands. Carlton Kirby and Daniel Lloyd have your call.
Enjoying racing again.
Yeah, and I think just refinding the love would be the way of describing it.
But he's come through the intermediate check in a time of 5 minutes, which puts him provisionally 6th there. So another 6 minutes or so, we'll see him coming into the finish.
That's Eddie Boss. Right now we're looking at Brent Bookwalter. Thank you very much for your kind thoughts, by the way, on Twitter. It's always good to know that we're not just speaking to Saturn, as they say. It's been a tough race, this one. What's your opinion of having a double individual time trial, its impact overall?
Well, I mean, the organisers, of course, were forced to change it. We've had the traditional opening team time trial and closing time trial for a few years now, and it's been reasonably successful. I think there's perhaps room for change in the near future. You know, sometimes it's nice to have a very similar course each year, so you know what you're going to get, and but sometimes it's quite nice to have a change as well.
Leo Koenig heads off the ramp and goes about his business, the Czech. Martin de Gerzigny, I believe is how you pronounce your name, says, you guys are awesome, but back at you, Martin. He says, send us a pic of your pocket coffee. We haven't been given one today. We were actually saying we would love to be sponsored by Pocket Coffee. It's actually a chocolate with a shot of espresso in the middle of it. So you sort of get both your chocolate and your espresso hit. It really does wake you up. The trouble is, if we were sponsored by them, we probably wouldn't sleep. Because they're so easy to eat, and it really is the same as having an espresso. So you need to take them sparingly, but great thing to have in your pocket. And I do see an awful lot of cyclists with that as an option on some of their runs. I guess it stops you stopping at the cafe, keeps you on your bike. Ivan Basso, looking at him, he's turned into a fantastic super domestique, hasn't he?
Yeah, he's slotted into that role very quickly and seemingly quite easy as well. A leader in his own right, of course, for many years at various teams along the way, including CSC, more recently Cannondale, which is the team he rode for up until the end of last year. Moving across to Tinkoff Saxo, now supporting Alberto Contador, and yeah, he's been working hard on the front, has Ivan Basso, on both the climbing stages and the flat stages. Here is Edvald Bosenhagen, number 131 on his back. Let's just remind you, 5 minutes was his time at the intermediate check, 6th place for him there. So again, doesn't look like he's going to be pushing the likes of Cancellara, Mallory or Kirienka off those top 3 spots, but a good time nonetheless.
His avowed aim is the Milan-San Remo. Trouble is, he's got teammates who also have the same avowed aim. But I think Eddie Boss could go very well in that, since the course has kind of come to him this year. Be interesting. Just passes the 8-minute mark.
2 former winners, haven't they, of course, here in this race, and presumably will be there on Sunday as well. Matt Goss, he really needs to kind of re-find his form again, having made the switch over to MTN from a very lucrative deal that he had at Orica Green Edge for the last few years. And, of course, Gerald Cielek as well, the German sprinter who won this race, won Milan-San Remo a couple of years ago, out sprinting Sagan. So they've got plenty of cards to play there, at least. You have to look at the positives. They aren't reliant on just one rider. They'll be able to go in there with plenty of options and see who's feeling the best as they reach the finale of the course.
No, we don't think there'll be a 1-2-3 for MTN Quebec, but I was going to say stranger things have happened, but nothing stranger than that has ever happened. Giovanni Visconti is on the ramp right now and gets a suitable cheer from the locals. It is a very well-supported race, this.
He's got double lenses, look. He's got a visor and sunglasses underneath.
Oh, he's probably wearing contacts as well. All that's missing is a telescope. Off he goes. Cafe Motta, one of the sponsors, quite clearly. We're still waiting for pocket coffee. Jose, our erstwhile assistant here in the commentary position, often just nips out and provides us with some sort of sustenance. I wonder what it'll be today. Fabian Cancellara's time there, and Brent Buchwalter is already off that, and he's not at the hoardings yet. Cancellara's time, is it a winning time?
It looks to me very much like a winning time. I can't see any of the GC riders really pushing that even close. Maybe Uran if he's on sterling form, but it's not exactly a time trial made for the Colombian rider from Ethics Quickstep. For those of you down in South Africa, fans of MTN Quebec and Main Keys, he went through the finish here in 49th place provisionally, 1 minute and 9 seconds down on Fabian Cancellara.
I told Main Keys this morning that he was 500 to 1 for the Tour de France, and he sort of looked at me with that, why are you telling me that? Well, it's because I'm hoping that he actually causes something of a shock. He's been found out, though, I think, on the appalling conditions that we've had throughout this race. Didn't like it at all, so if it's bad weather, he won't be there. Brent Buchwalter, 38th spot just for now. 48.452 kilometers per hour. You've got to be in the 50s in terms of your speed averaged over the course. Fabian Cancellara went through in 52.7 kilometers per hour. Absolutely outstanding. Scarponi did a good job of at least waving the flag by getting himself in the break the other day. How much did it take out of him? That's the question.
Yeah, he was the last rider to be caught. Drops Demarchi of BMC towards the top of Terminillo, and in fact was only caught by Quintana with around about 4 Ks to go. So he sits reasonably high up the overall classification, but here another rider who's become kind of a super domestique really for Vincenzo Nibali, the Italian champion, who will be rolling down the start ramp at 32 minutes past 3, so only 7 minutes time. Here comes Edvald Bosenhagen into the finishing straight, then not going to, as we suspected, really bother the likes of Cancellara, Mallory or Kirienka.
So Eddie Boss, not in bossing mood today, but I guess just wanted to keep something in the legs for the Milan-San Remo, where if it's not going to be him, it's hopefully for him will be one of his teammates. We're going to work hard for that, possibly a bit harder than he has done today. 8th quickest time nonetheless, but we know Eddie Boss, when he's in a chance of glory, can actually just reach out a bit better than that on occasion. Still looks like it's been an effort, and of course it is. 10 Ks at the end of what has been a hard course can certainly feel like it, and indeed more. So who are you looking forward to seeing cross the line today? Who could potentially upset the apple cart?
Castroviejo and Cummings, I think, are the only ones that have any chance of coming close to Cancellara, Mallory or Kirienka. I'm looking forward to that top 10 riders who will, of course, be separated by 2 minutes as they come down the start ramp, starting with Wout Poels, who's 10th overall. He sets off at 41 minutes past 3. 2 minutes later, Cummings, and then the rest of the GC guys. I'm just looking forward to seeing how they all go. As you rightly said, it's a bit of a shock to the system doing a 10K time trial at the end of a tough race like they've had. 5 long road stages will really have started to fatigue the legs, and so trying to really go all out on such a short course, 12 minutes really is around about what most of these riders are doing. Can be, as I say, quite a big shock to the system, and it's a lot of it just down to who's recovered the best from the previous days. I think that cold weather really did get into particularly the skinny GC riders yesterday and the day before. So yeah, Cummings, I think, is in with a great shout of really leapfrogging a whole host of riders today if he's on good form.
Steve Morabito out on the road. About 20 riders remain to leave the line. We're getting into the business end of this, the final stage of the Tirreno-Adriatico. We'll take another quick break. We'll be right back. You're watching Bein Sports. Back to San Benedetto del Tronto. This is the stage 7, the final stage of the 2015 Tirreno-Adriatico. Just to run down the jerseys, for those of you just joining us, Nairo Quintana is in the blue and white jersey, the overall classification and the young riders classification. Peter Sagan, your points leader, in the red jersey. Carlos Quintero in the green jersey. The points and green jersey already sealed up. Those two will go to Peter Sagan and Carlos Quintero. We're down to the last 20 riders off the line for today's stage. Let's send it back to the race. Carlton Kirby and Daniel Lloyd have your call.
Here is one of their riders just about to leave the start ramp. That looks like Sitsu to me. Just about to set off. On the right-hand side of your screens is Leopold Koenig, who came, of course, over from NetApp Endura last year. Stage winner at the Vuelta a España a couple of years ago, and almost a stage winner at the Tour de France in his debut last year. He just got pipped to the post by Rafael Maikya of Tinkoff Saxo. Very, very good rider. Apparently extremely meticulous in every part of the sport and every aspect of his training. So that's perfectly suited, I would imagine, to Team Sky.
Yes, yet another man who's been under the watchful eye of Brian Smith, who these days is partially responsible for the great roster that's at MTN Quebecer. Brian Smith, a man with fingers in many pies, so never buy a pie from Brian. Actually, I think I'll stop there. Monteguti right now. The thought of that, yeah, maybe he makes perfectly reasonable pies. I don't know. I'll ask him. Just over 12 and a half minutes now, and that's not to write home about. Or if you do, it's a very short postcard, I'm afraid, with a very big time written across it. Yes, Monteguti, we're doing him the favour. I think possibly the Italian director here today just wanted to see Monteguti's across the line, and I'm not surprised, but the time was no surprise at all. Let's put it that way. Back out on the course, and you're looking at Leo Koenig. Not a bad run. If this course had been a bit more technical, I think the drying road would have had a much bigger impact.
Yeah, it definitely would have done. If you get a lot of corners, of course, which you can take momentum through when the going is dry, as it is getting at the moment. The sort of first starters today, almost completely wet roads for them. Things are drying out. Here is Vincenzo Nibali, just about to make his way off this start ramp.
So Nibali is going to the Milan-San Remo. I guess that's a great bonus bonus for the organisers, just the fact that he's going to turn up. Won't be winning it, I wouldn't have thought. But how will he go today? He's a pretty decent time trialist, and he actually thrives well here. In fact, he took the title in 2012 by a reasonably narrow margin over Chris Horner. I think it was 12 seconds or so at the time. So, and he's set off like he means business. This is good.
Yeah, I think he's a man who's admitted to the press just yesterday that he's not on the form that he was hoping for at this time of the season. Certainly not in the condition to be able to win this race like he did, as you said, a couple of years ago. He was found out really on that climb up to Terminillo. His team did a good job positioning him, but he just didn't have the legs to fight it out with the likes of Contador, etc., and certainly not Nairo Quintana. So he's got some work to do, but just like he did last year, really, and I don't think that Nibali will panic. His main aim this year is to try and defend that Tour de France title in July, so he's got plenty of months until then, but I guess it must still play on your psyche a little when one of your key rivals, Nairo Quintana, who also hasn't raced very much this year, is so far ahead. But yeah, let's see what happens in July.
Yes, Quintana will go off last. Also on from Movistar, one of his teammates, Castrovejo. He's just heading off the ramp right now. We'll have a look at Nibali again in a few moments' time, but is it just me, or does he look like he's carrying a bit more muscle? Not winter weight, but generally seems to have bulked up just a little bit, Nibali.
Not sure.
Nicolas Castroviejo out on the course now for Movistar team. Still about 15 riders to come off the line before the end of today's stage. It is stage 7, the final, the closing stage of the 2015 Tirreno-Adriatico on Bein Sports. We will be right back with more. Iturralde out on the course now as well. One of the main riders that we've been watching, or that we were hoping to watch today, is Vincenzo Nibali. He's out on the course as well. Of course, he is your 2014 Tour de France General Classification champion. There he is right there. We'll be keeping an eye on him. We expect big things from him today. Your current leader out on the race is Fabian Cancellara with a time of 11 minutes and 23 seconds. We send it back down to Carlton Kirby and Daniel Lloyd for more from stage 7 of Tirreno-Adriatico.
You only get that warning once, don't you? Goodness me. Yes, it's a traffic calming devices are not really what time trial bikes are made to take on, but yeah, doing a reasonable job. He did just take a little lack of vision and didn't prep himself or brace himself for that, and that will have hurt. So through he comes, threading the needle. Not quite
he's
as
done a very good
as I
time,
thought,
actually.
But yeah, he's
Nibali, sixth place for him at the intermediate check. He was pretty good in the opening prologue, but yeah, just 7 seconds down on Kirienka at that point, 6 seconds down on Mallory, and 5 on our current leader at the finish, Fabian Cancellara.
There we are, and there is the palms, the fronds of which are static, as you can see. There's no wind, so for the late runs, it's going to be near perfect conditions, to be honest. Not too hot, no wind, and a drying course. Niemiec on course right now, as you can see, in the early part of his run. I'm looking forward to this. We've got some very, very good performers who are on the road right now. Look at this.
Well, he's gone quickest at the intermediate check, Castrovejo. Exactly the same time as Kirienka. Can he hold on to it?
Well, he certainly is motoring. He may not be comfortable on the bike, as the constant readjustments suggest. But he's rolling beautifully here. Cancellara said he was his main rival on the day, as declared. And didn't exactly go under the radar. We know he can perform, but well, he's doing exactly that. There's the split at the 4.3 kilometre mark, 2 seconds to the good of Cancellara. And the thing about Castrovejo is we know he can sustain this, and 10 kilometres is no fright to him. Takes that corner beautifully. In fact, the little section before Nibali hit the sleeping policeman, he took at a much higher pace, clearly, visibly. And to be honest, when the gaps are as narrow as they are, it's not always that obvious, but very, very good push. This is Van den Broek. big guy, Jürgen.
Yeah, he certainly is. He's a rider, of course, who's done very well in the Tour de France in the past, just missing the podium on a couple of occasions, I think it was. Perhaps hasn't quite been the same rider since, but he's not been going at all badly in this race. He sits just outside the top 10 overall going into today.
This is looking very good indeed. I thought Cancellara's time was going to be, well, stand the test, as it were, of exactly that. But famously, Cancellara did a great job on the negative split. Not the fastest at the intermediate, but delivering it. So it's a question of what Castroviejo, whether he can actually just get through the discomfort that he's clearly feeling on the bike right now. It is an amazing position he's got. Yeah,
it's so aerodynamic, and of course it means he doesn't have to put out quite as much power as some of the other riders to go at the same speed. They're a phenomenal team, Movistar, in fact, for time trialling. Alex Dowsett, of course, back in Britain, hasn't raced so far this year after breaking his collarbone in the run-up to trying to go for the world hour record. Apparently he's set that again for April to make that attempt. But Castroviejo, great time trialist. Wouldn't have had him down amongst the very best today, but he has won a prologue, I think it was, in the Tour de Romandie a few years ago. He was so ragged then, there were loads and loads of corners. I distinctly remember him, I think he was riding for Escatel at the time. So that's when he first kind of came on my radar, but he's going very well today. As I said, best time at the intermediate check, just 2 seconds in front of Cancellara. Big question is how fast he can go on this return leg, because we saw Fabian really left a lot for that last few kilometres. And you have to say as well that he has had the advantage of very slightly dry roads than Cancellara had.
Yes, indeed. We're just looking at his nibs, Vincenzo Nibali, at the moment. Just into the corner and giving it a lot of respect.
Yeah, he did, didn't he?
He did, yeah. And there's been a couple of those, to be honest, along the way. And then again, just hexagons, that one. Didn't get the smoothest line through. Not really quite sure what his issues are today. He's familiar with his time trial bike and indeed these roads. And it is a drying surface, but he just seems to be displaying a few sort of nerves along the way at pace. He's clearly not himself. This man, though, Castroviejo, more than that, he's in what looks like potentially dominant form.
Well, I reckon it's around about 1 minute and 4 seconds that the top riders are taking to cover the last kilometre, so he needs to get there in a time of 10 minutes and 20 seconds at the very least, I would say, if he's to stand a chance of winning today's stage, or at least currently dislodging Fabian Cancellara.
Roman Corsica just setting off into his run right now. Poles will be off next for Sky, who of course led this race, albeit until we got into the horrible mountains where Poles, who doesn't carry a lot of extra body weight, really suffered in the cold. He wasn't alone. I mean, he has been chilly. Some, I think, misguided criticism of the organisers in the press. But you can't manage the weather, especially at this time of year. So, Steve Cummings, what have you got, fella? He's probably got a shorter bike than he would have liked, and he's about to get off the ramp in a few moments' time. Top 5, apparently, is within target, according to General Manager of MTN Quebec, Brian Smith. Is he right?
I certainly think it's well within his grasp if he's recovered from the last few days. He's done very, very well in this race. Good to see Steve Cummings on such good form. He's a rider who does do well in the early season when it's not quite such hot weather. He does seem to suffer once the temperature really goes up, but he's about to go off the start ramp. He's been warming up whilst looking at a phone with a video of today's course, so he's obviously extremely concentrated, but he'll want to try and make sure that he holds something back for that homeward leg.
Yes, he does. So what's his deficit overall? What does he need to get on the top 5 in the GC by the end?
His deficit in the overall classification is 1 minute and 12 seconds, and third place is 24 seconds in front, that of course being Rigoberto Urán. That's going to be a hard task, but to get into the top 5, it's much more feasible. He's only got to make up 9 seconds it is to Contador in 5th place.
Wow, so go Steve-O for MTN Quebec. I know plenty of you fans down in South Africa will be screaming for him, and the men in the black and white. I actually said, what do you nickname the team? And he says it's just about earning your stripes.
So Vincenzo Nibali coming across the line in a bit of a disappointing time. A lot better of a performance was expected from Vincenzo Nibali here in his home country. So he comes across the line with the 14th best time thus far. Fabian Cancellara is still your best time across the line, 11 minutes, 23 seconds. We'll be right back on Bein Sports. Nicholas Castroviejo, the most recent rider to cross the line, comes in with the 4th best time, 12 seconds down on the race leader, which is still Fabian Cancellara, the Swiss rider. Still out on the road, though, a number of really important riders in terms of the overall classification. Steve Cummings out on the road as well, but we're getting down to the business end. Soon we will have our blue jersey holder out on the course. Roberto Uran Bachmolen to come, as well as is Alberto Contador. We send it back now to Carlton Kirby and Daniel Lloyd for more from stage 7.
Just trimming the corner nicely. What will be interesting is when we get to this little technical section. It's sort of a left and then 2 90-degree turns, a right and then a left again. And it really is the section that is just starting to cause a little bit of nervousness. You saw Vincenzo Nibali not exactly being the most focused. This is Domenico Pozzovivo. He is also quite diminutive. Not that his first name means that, but aptly named, I think you could say, just about. And he's got himself a nice trackies visor here. As you can see, looks suitably mean. Yeah, he's trembling.
He's a man that's done a very good time trial in a couple of years ago at the Vuelta. You might remember that he finished 3rd behind Fabian Cancellara and Tony Martin. It was a huge, huge surprise at the time, but he has done good time trials before and since that, never quite on that level. And today's course, of course, not really suited to this rider. He could do with a couple of climbs in a time trial.
Well, displaying the nerves at the top of the day, and I'm not surprised. He's got a chance of, well, finishing in the top 10. And I just hope for his sake that he manages to deliver. Steve Cummings on course right now. This is a fascinating one. Just freewheels over that sleeping policeman. That traffic calming ramp. Well, he didn't do it that time by. I'm not quite sure what the issue was. Maybe he saw it late and thought it was going to be a bit of a kick. Nonetheless, as you can see, he's now driving over them, which is what you need, just powering on. But yeah, something of a surprise there. It is about an entire combination of factors doing a good time trial, and you don't want to give anything away, even momentarily, do you?
No, he's just coming up to the intermediate check now. 4 minutes and 52 seconds is the best there for Castroviejo and Kirienka, so he's not going to be up there with those guys at this point in time.
Standing on the pedals again over that last little calming device, and just not looking overly comfortable in the turns. I wonder whether the frame of the bike really is not suiting him, and maybe that's why we've got these issues being displayed. If you missed it earlier on, he is measured at 1.90 m normally, but the UCI came along today and measured his height, gave him a 189.8, and so as a result, he's 2 mil shy of being allowed a bigger bike. Adam Yates, no such concerns for him.
No, another rider who's got a lot on his shoulders today for a young man. This is a really big result for young Adam Yates. He currently sits in 6th place, just 1 place behind the best GC rider of a generation. That is Alberto Contador. You can see that he's still got that little mark on his chin from the day 1, or certainly first road stage crash coming into Cascina on that day, but hasn't seemed to have affected him, Carlton. He's been absolutely flying on the stages since then.
He has. It was a nasty cut, that. Clearly a lot deeper than it looked at the start. If you do get a cut after a big hit like that, it often takes the body a little while to release the shock from the muscle, and then it just starts to gush the blood a little bit later on, and clearly it was worse than perhaps we'd thought at the top. It still looks nasty. Jürgen van der Broek with work to do, not really his kind of thing today. Into the hoarded sections, and there's that the target times constantly readjusting themselves at the moment. He is extraordinarily broad, isn't it? He offers up a big profile to the wind.
Yeah, it's a real disadvantage actually in time trialing if you've got really broad shoulders. There's not much you can do about that, unfortunately, unless you break both your collarbones and pin them in slightly closer, which I have heard suggested by a couple of riders before. Yeah, not a bad time though for Van den Broek. As you said, he's not a time trial specialist by any stretch of the imagination, so I don't think he'll be too disappointed with today's performance. Another rider has got very wide shoulders is Kruijswijk, the Dutch rider riding for Lotto Jumbo. He's been over in Paris-Nice, but yeah, it always stands out when you find a rider with such broad shoulders.
Yes, he's always sort of interfering with wing mirrors on parked cars. Alberto Contador, little wave to the crowd, takes a little stretch of the neck muscles by giving what looks like a cat-like grin. Teammate on course and about to finish as one starts.
Yeah, Kruijswijk coming in towards the finish now. He started this morning some way down on the overall classification in 11th, 1 minute and 15 seconds down. He was 5 minutes and 10 seconds through the intermediate check, so 18 down on Tirreno-Adriatico.
That's 50 meters for Kruijswijk. Wrestling the bike, as you can see, and probably glad that this is all over. 40th place, 51 seconds away, just under the 50 kilometers an hour marker. That speed of Cancellara, 52.7, really something to behold, and nothing that Tirreno-Adriatico or others could do about it. Kirienka is in 3rd place, incidentally, for Team Sky. Good result for him so far. And Adriano Mallory as well, sitting on 11.27. Cancellara 11.23, 11 minutes and 23 for the course. I'll be fascinated to see how Alberto Contador takes this on, to be honest, because he's not where he needs to be in terms of form on the high stuff, despite some flashes of brilliance early on in this season. He's a man who generally tends to respond rather well to he can blow hot and cold, is what I'm trying to say. He can sort of, his form is almost hard to read, and I think sometimes he actually doesn't even know where he is himself until he gets out on the bike. We've talked about how he digs into his own personal resources. Even within a stage, he looks like he's gone, and then all of a sudden he finds something, as if he's got that extra little bit of reserve fuel somehow that he manages to turn his mind to and take on. How much does he want this today?
I really don't know. I'm sure that he wants to make a good showing. He wasn't great in the opening prologue. He finished some way down that day. We weren't expecting that. He didn't finish very high in this race last year, actually, in terms of the time trial. But that said, he had such a huge cushion in the overall classification that he really didn't need to push himself to his limits on this stage itself. But yeah, Thibaut Pinot just about to roll off the start ramp in the white jersey as best young rider, which he wears on behalf, of course, of Nairo Quintana, who's leading the race overall.
So, nursing the white jersey, Thibaut Pinot comes off the ramp. Had a good season last year, and it's boding well, his run here. Into the first series of curves. As you can see, I'm not quite sure who the seafarer is who's blowing the conch shell. Bestatued, if that's a word. Thibaut Pinot then gets himself on course and underway. Only 3 more to come, and it's Rigoberto Urán who will be going off as his 2-minute man. Bauke Mollema, who's the man who's under threat from Urán as runner-up, and of course our leader, who'll be wearing the blue jersey, Nairo Quintana, who's just been outstanding. More on that in a moment's time. Steve Cummings coming home. Well, I'd like to know which bike he finally did get, whether the stretching exercises found 2 millimeters or added a couple of mil to his height. There are back stretching devices you can use. It's not the rack, but those that are completely of normal use in chiropractors places where you strap your ankles in and tip yourself back up. Apparently very good for the spine. I think they need to invest in one. We'll see. Steve Cummings not going to be winning today, but can he move himself up? That's the point. Can he get a top 5 with this performance? How good's it going to be?
It's going to be a solid performance, I think, is how we're going to describe it today. Not pushing the top 3 there, but most importantly, of course, for Steve, not the stage result so much as trying to move up the overall classification. And certainly of GC riders that have come in, he's going to be the best. 8th place for Stephen Cummings of MTN Quebec as he crosses the line. Just under 51 k's per hour for him. But if we compare him to some of the GC riders who've just come in, Wout Poels came in 22nd place at 38 seconds, and Roman Kreuziger came in 42nd place at 51 seconds.
So, Rigoberto Urán, Colombian time trial champion, gets off the ramp. He has turned himself into a lean, mean time trialing machine. And for a man who goes well in the mountains, I think it's, well, we know about his credentials, but it's great to see him producing such good time trialing results. It wasn't always the case.
No, he's certainly improved on it. The team sponsor Specialized, who provide the bikes to Ethics Quickstep, along with, of course, Tinkoff Saxo and Astana. Incredible investment that they make into the sport and the World Tour teams. But they worked closely with Rigoberto Urán, and it really paid off, in particular last year. He's won that National Time Trial Championships again at the top of this year. But he dominated the long time trial in the Giro d'Italia last year, putting in quite a large amount of time to his key rivals there on that stage in the Wine-Grown region, which name of which I always forget, and you remind me.
Barolo?
That's the one.
Yeah, Barolo. It's an extraordinarily rich place. Wherever you grow wine, historically, you've had a solid income, even back in Tudor times. But yes, they were particularly mean, and we've never forgotten that. In fact, if you go to Barolo, if you have a look at their wine that they've got for sale and you scan it, you'll find out you can get it cheaper at home all the way back in the United Kingdom. So they were taking the mickey a bit. Lovely place, though. Very, very pretty, I must admit, but yeah, expensive.
Contador's going pretty well, actually, in this time trial, Carlton. He was 8th through the intermediate check, 4 minutes and 59 seconds, so one of the few to break the 5-minute barrier there, which puts him just 1 second behind Stephen Cummings. And just to remind you, the difference between those two in the overall classification, Steve Cummings 1:12 behind Contador 1:03, so 9 seconds. So it'll be a tall order, perhaps, for Steve Cummings to leap over Alberto Contador today.
Joaquim Rodriguez has gone well on this course, albeit slightly shorter in the past. Not quite so much at stake this time by, and in fact, it's bye-bye to any sniff of a top 5 by the looks of things. This is not a great time by Rodriguez. He's going to have to find something better a little bit later. I believe he's going to the Giro, so we'll see how he goes again there. Notably second place to Ryder Ejerdal in 2012. There he is. Gosh, 12:35 gives away 1:12. It's a discipline that needs a bit of polish.
Yeah, well, he's never been great at individual time trials, Joaquim Rodriguez. This is a man who's certainly been working on his time trialing over the winter months, made the move over from Belkin, as it was last year, and Bianchi bikes over to Trek Factory Racing. Does look still reasonably high to me at the front end there, in comparison to the best time trialists. There is that little bit of, you know, give when it comes to power when you get into a low position, but often it can still be of benefit and make you faster, even if you do lose a few watts because of the position that you're in. The best time trialists like Cancellara, like Mallory, almost have a completely flat back. We can see Mollema there is reasonably high up and really quite hunched, actually.
Yes, sort of craning a little bit. Here is Nairo Quintana. Fantastic performance. Giro d'Italia champion. And of course, thinking Tour de France this year. Right now, though, he's thinking about just bringing it home. And with a cushion of 39 seconds, I don't think there's any threat.
Well, you wouldn't have thought so. He was up there on this stage last year in 21st place, so it seems as though he has the overall title here at Tirreno-Adriatico in the bag. But let's not give him the kiss of death, shall we?
Extraordinarily modest man, Nairo Quintana, and almost joyful, childlike almost, when he comes across adulation. He's not shy of it, but he just doesn't. It's almost like he just can't quite believe how lucky he is, and I love that about him. Gets on the top step of the podium and just the broadest, most pleasant smile breaks out on his face. And normally he's very, very stony-faced when he's on the bike, but it's just a level of a measure of, I guess, a mark of the concentration that he imposes on his chosen career. And what a career it's turning out to be for what is still a young man.
Oh, very, very young still as well. Yeah, it's always easy to forget when somebody is so successful that they are still so young. Similarly with Peter Sagan, really. But Italy's being very kind to this man, Nairo Quintana. He won his first Grand Tour here last year. In fact, only the second one, I think it was, that he competed in. Crashed out of the Vuelta. He crashed very hard in the individual time trial and again the following day early on in the race. So a disappointment there for him, but he certainly bounced back very well at the start of this season. He did crash again in his road race national championship, so we didn't really know what kind of form that he'd be on here at Tirreno-Adriatico, but he's certainly given us the answer to that.
Yeah, a lot of people very vocal, including the great Sean Kelly, about Quintana not being included in the thoughts for the Tour de France when he was on such amazing form out of the Giro. And Quintana himself felt a bit wounded by it, I think, that Valverde had taken the leader's card for that. But yeah, he's going to the Tour de France this time and skipping the Giro, so we'll see how he goes. I think he's certainly got to be amongst the favourites. How well do you think he will finish?
Well, it's always very, very difficult to say. He's got some stiff competition, should I say, there this year. Just going through some of the time checks for you. Steve Cummings has said 23 seconds down on the winner, or the provisional best place on the time trial here, Fabian Cancellara. Quite a way in front of Rodriguez today, and quite a way also in front of Pozzovivo. So he's definitely leapfrogged them and gone up provisionally to 7th place overall. We're waiting for Adam Yates to come through next at the finish. I should keep you updated on that when he comes in. But already 12 minutes and 16 seconds on the clock for Adam Yates. So Cummings gone ahead of him as well. Fellow British rider, so he's up to 6th, and then we'll be waiting, of course, for Contador and seeing what he can do. 12 minutes and 23 seconds for Adam Yates as he crosses the line, 60th place.
Well, I think they're going to be popping some of the rather sensational wines that you have down in South Africa. I've been reminded that the team presentation is coming up at the end of the season, naturally enough, for MTN Quebecer, and we're hoping to actually pop along. So if any of you fans out there are going to be in attendance, then it'd be nice to, well, come and say hello. Quintana, Oran and Mollema on your screens right now, and this is a busy road. Just 10 kilometers of it. Doesn't sound like terribly much, but when there's a lot at stake, it must hurt out there because the efforts involved are quite substantial. So Contador, what's he got at the line?
Well, he needs to finish under 11:55 if he wants to stay in front of MTN Quebecer's Steve Cummings at the finish line here. He was on exactly the same time pretty much as they went through the intermediate check, 1 second behind the Brit. So very much depends again on how well he's judged the pacing today and how he's looking on this homeward stretch, but it doesn't look too bad at the moment.
Doesn't look too bad, but let's have a look. What's the target time again? 11:55?
11:55.
It's going to be extraordinarily close. He's still got a couple of 100 meters to go. 150 now into the 100. Goodness me, it's going to be absolutely a piece of paper between them. Very tight indeed. I think Contador's just going to get there. Heartbreak stuff for Cummings, I think. 11:54, nabs it by a second.
Yeah, 8 seconds the difference between those two on the day. 9 seconds the overall, so he's going to finish 1 second in front of Stephen Cummings in this race. But still not out of the question for Stephen to move up into the top 5. Sorry to dwell on him too long, good friend of mine. Thibaut Pinot was 57 seconds down on Quintana this morning, 16 seconds in front of Stephen Cummings. Just double checking that actually. 1 minute, and I should get back to you in a second.
I do like your mathematical genius. You just carry on with your pen. Thibaut Pinot, there he is, nursing the white young riders jersey on behalf of our leader, Nairo Quintana. Pinot is just such, he's not even a prospect anymore, he's such a star turn for the French, isn't he? And their academy system is really starting to pay dividends. Some great riders coming out of France.
Yeah, it's good to see that the French are back on form. Of course, 2 riders on the podium last year, first time that's happened in absolutely decades at the Tour de France. So they're on very good morale, the French teams and French riders at the moment. Of course, most of the teams sending their best, most of the French teams sending their best riders to Paris-Nice, where they get more coverage, of course, from the national newspapers, etc. But Pinot opting to go for Tirreno this year, probably to work on his time trialing a little bit, and also because of the big mountaintop finish up to Terminillo, where he was looking really good indeed. 12 minutes and 1 second is where he will need to finish if he wants to stay in front of Cummings, and 12 minutes dead, I think it is, if he wants to finish in front of Contador overall.
Full attack on course, as you can see, and this is busy. What's his time? Thibaut Pinot on full attack right now. There he is, 11.50s. This is going to be good. He might just pick Contador. No, it's not going to happen. Cummings' time also goes, 11.56. How tight is it around there?
Well, he's also stayed in front, but we are going to have 3 or 4 riders within 5 or 6 seconds of each other, I think, in the end in this Tirreno-Adriatico in the overall classification. So who have we got left still to come in? Well, Quintana went through the intermediate check, 64th place, 5 minutes and 15 seconds it took him to get there. So he has lost a reasonable chunk of time. 16 seconds to Contador is what he lost there. Even more, of course, to Cummings, and a big chunk of time to Fabian Cancellara. Uran, who you had on your screens a few moments ago, he went through the time check 29th at 5:07, 5 minutes and 7 seconds.
Volker Mollema, a man who had to be saved by Fabian Cancellara after a late puncture the other day. Well, it helped him stay in contention for that runners-up spot. What will the Rigoberto Urán post? He'll be across the line next. Haven't seen much of him on the road, and it's a fascinating one in terms of the overall podium at the end. No doubt, I don't think that Quintana is going to be on the top step. And here comes Urán right now. Yeah, Urán just coming into the home straight now. He's still got a fair way to go. He's certainly not going to be right up there on the stage itself, but he's, of course, fighting for the overall podium here at Tirreno-Adriatico. Can he hold on to it? Well, it's a narrow margin between himself and Volker Mollema. It's about the overall, and indeed about Quintana, but these guys are bidding for intermediate positions, and Urán has invested a lot in this. You can see it. Yeah, Urán starting this morning 48 seconds down on Quintana. He had 9 to make up to Mollema. He's also 9 seconds ahead of Thibaut Pinot. Steve Cummings' time has just gone through. There is other names, including Eddie Boss and Van Avermaet, and still with 70 or 80 meters to go, trimming down nicely now, but he's in the 12-minute marker here, Urán. I think he possibly could have hoped for more than that. Gives away 38 seconds over the 10K. But I think he's going to just about keep the 3rd place that he had when he started out this morning. Mollema was a little way ahead of him at the intermediate check. So Bauke, the Dutch rider from the Trek Factory Racing team, looks set to be finishing 2nd place overall in this race. Don't think there's going to be much change, in fact, in the top 3 places, unless there's an absolute disaster for this man. Let's just remind you, he did lose a chunk of time at that first check. He came through there, Nairo Quintana, in 5 minutes and 15 seconds. So what's that? 23 seconds down on some of the best riders today. What's Volker Mollema got? He's coming up to the Flamme Rouge, and this looks like it's a decent run by him. Yeah, as I said, it's going to take about 1 minute and 5 seconds for him to cover this final kilometre, which is a great average speed. So 11.55, my guess for him. I'm going 11.57. Ah, well done. Yeah, good effort, though, by Volker, and he's just starting to nod a little bit. As you can see, too much lateral movement at the front, but it's take nothing away from the effort. And in fact, the bike looks reasonably solid underneath him. He's got the movement and not the front of his machine side to side, which is exactly what you need to do. Reasonably solid performance then. Volker Mollema heading in. Well, we'll wait to see what the final standings will be. He has felt very much under threat from Rigoberto Urán, but he's responded here, hasn't he? Yeah, he's had a very, very good race. He was the only man who was able to get away from that big chasing group behind Quintana on the way to Terminillo, putting himself into 2nd place overall, and looks like a job well done for Volker Mollema in this race. I think he's going to retain that 2nd place in the overall classification, and he's going to be close to your time than mine. Or is he? Is it going to be 11.55 or 11.57? Ah, no. Oh, no. I've just won myself a beer. 34 seconds out then. We'll wait for this to spin through, but good effort by Volker Mollema. And indeed, we just wait now for Nairo Quintana, who needs to just essentially stay on the bike. We remind you, he came into this day with a 39-second cushion over Mollema. Mollema not the fastest of everybody out here today. And you're looking at the man who now just needs to bring this bike home, take the rig in, and indeed take what is justifiably his. Quintana has been superb. He is a terrific cyclist, a great badge, if you like, for the sport, and he's such a gent. In fact, if you see him walking around, he he often just gets ignored by people. It's not deliberately. He's just such a almost an anonymous figure when he's off the bike, but he lets his legs do the talking. And he has done a superb job here on the Tirreno-Adriatico. Daniel Lloyd has just skipped off to go and interview our winners today. Bein Cancellara has been head and shoulders above everybody by keeping his shoulders nice and down where they need to be. Oh, we've got a number of protests going on, which we've just had a look at. One is by the, I understand it's the Sun Loungers Association. As you can see, that they were didn't have enough clothing on. But anyway, I'm not quite sure what their gripe is. It's something to do with licensing, I believe, on the beaches. Meanwhile, this man, Quintana, continues to ply his trade absolutely superbly into the hoarded section. He'll make that little slight turn. That car needs to get out of there. It's a bit too close. I need his own team to upset him. Quintana then is heading for the line, and he's heading for a title. Another one to be added in the early chapters of what is destined to be a truly great career. Colombia have always provided good cyclists, and this man at the moment is the best of the latest crop of genius. The line coming. Quintana is our champion. Terrific. Big smile breaks out across his face as he sees his teammates giving him the big thumbs up. Average speed 48.78 kilometers per hour. Not a time trial winning performance, but what a great rider he is. Quintana is the winner of this Tirreno-Adriatico as a big smile bursts across his face. This is how the time trial finished. Bein Cancellara taking it by a margin of 4 seconds over Adriano Mallory, Kirienka, Castrovejo, Bodnar, Hepburn, Navadauskas. Steve Cummings getting a great run in 8th place ahead of Amador, and Edvald Bosenhagen putting 2 MTN boys in the top 10 on the final time trial. We have our champion. It wasn't that he was taking it easy, it's just that he did not have to knock himself out, courtesy of the efforts he had put in to that amazing performance. Steve Cummings just misses out on the top 5. Contador holds on to that by a margin of just 1 second. Here is Fabian.
Fabian, congratulations. You've turned the tables from the prologue, and you look like you've come out of this race looking very good.
I think once for sure I feel the lot of racing kilometers, but on the other hand I think the mistakes on the prologue I could do it really well. Now in the opposite to turning in the positive, I think I did mistakes. And yeah, on the end, of course, had to push a lot, like everyone has to do. I mean, I knew it with Adriano and also with Castrovejo that this will be the contenders on the paper, because the other years already, this was the contenders, and I think I just given all in, and I think yeah, I'm really happy and satisfied, of course, to have another victory in the pocket. But of course, I'm looking now for the larger and bigger picture, and that's on the weekend and on the end for the next few weekends for the big races.
There we are, thinking about next weekend and the other big races. He's got plenty to think about. He'll be thriving in Flanders. Here's your overall standings. Nairo Quintana, our champion, finally by a margin of 18 seconds ahead of Boca Mollema. Uran, third on the podium. He makes it. Pinot just missing out. Contador rounds out the top 5 with Steve Cummings missing out on a top 5 finish by just a solitary second. Finishes ahead of stage winner here, Walt Powell's, Pozzovivo, Adam Yates and Roman Kreuziger. Well, we enjoyed that very much indeed, and hope you have too. It's been a terrific Tirreno-Adriatico, full of drama, full of hurt, and full of glory. Bodnar finishing 5th ahead of Castrovejo, who went late. Cancellara saying that he was, in his mind, the major threat on the day. Kirienka, who went earlier, finishing in 3rd place. Mallory, runner-up by a margin of 4 seconds. The Italian time trial champion, who of course took that opening prologue time trial, couldn't repeat the feat, but went close. 4 seconds he gave away to our winner of the final stage. Who else but Fabian Cancellara, the old warhorse, still battling. Cancellara takes the stage. Quintana takes the title. Here's your amended UCI World Ranking. Quintana goes up to 3rd place. Richie Port heads this ahead of Rowan Dennis. Does such amazing work early on in the season, Rowan Dennis, and of course on the 1-hour record as well. Kwiatkowski in 4th place ahead of Boca Mollema, who's up to 5th now, courtesy of this performance. And Cadel Evans, now retired, still 7th on the ranking, with Iran now just a point behind him in 8th. Da Costa and Tom Dumoulin rounding out the top 10. Well, the Adriatic looking a little bit churned, not quite as blue as the jersey that will be placed upon the shoulders of Nairo Quintana. Great race for him, and indeed good to see him on such sterling form so early on in the season. Time for the other GC boys, I guess, to measure themselves against him. He is our champion here, the little guy from Colombia with a big heart and a big performance.
So Nairo Quintana, your Giro d'Italia winner from 2014, takes this one as well. At Tirreno-Adriatico, he does very well in Italy. We'll be back for the podium after this. Back to San Benedetto del Tronto here. We've reached the conclusion of the 2015 Tirreno-Adriatico. Your stage 7 winner, Fabian Cancellara, finishing with a time of 11 minutes and 23 seconds ahead of Adriano Malori, who took stage 1, the time trial that was amended because of the minor hurricane that passed through the area. Once again, your stage 7 winner, Fabian Cancellara.
Fabian Cancellara, un oro olimpico, 4 mondiali della prova contro il tempo. Lui che ha vinto sulle strade della Tirreno-Adriatico festeggia un successo importante. La seconda affermazione di questo 2015 per il direttissimo di Berna, il portacolori di Track Factory Racing, l'atleta più veloce in questa giornata, che ha pedalato ad altissima andatura lungo questi 10 km, Fabian Cancellara.
Well, he was your 2008 Tirreno-Adriatico winner. He wins stage 7 of this year's race. Coming in 2nd place in the prologue, the short amended time trial that started out this year's competition. He does get his revenge on Malori. Malori finishing in 2nd, 4 seconds back. But your winner today, of course, Nairo Quintana, who in doing so moves into 3rd in the overall UCI World Tour standings with 106 points now behind Richie Port, up at 198. And Rohan Dennis, who's up at 114. A very, very impressive resume now for Nairo Quintana as he begins to build up his credentials. He's going to take another Young Rider Classification Award home as well. He took it at the 2013 Tour de France and at the Giro Italia in 2014. Of course, also took the general classification in that one as well. So he's beginning to pick up some steam now in his career, Nairo Quintana. Of course, the Tour de France Mountains Classification winner back in 2013. So he's got quite a bit of things going in his direction. He's going to take home the blue jersey and the white jersey, as well as the victory trophy for the overall classification in this one as well. Let's get a look at some of the highlights from today's stage. Oh, we go now down to the podium for the final awards ceremony. Well, if you're wondering at what point did it happen in this year's competition, when did Nairo Quintana claim victory? It was stage 5, no doubt. The ascent up the mountain and the snowy finish. Here's a look at the top 3 as they are. Rigoberto Urán from Ethics Quickstep out of Colombia is your 3rd place finisher. On the set right now, Bok Mollema from the Netherlands from Trek Factory Racing. He's going to finish in 2nd, 18 seconds back, but once again, for the final time, from Colombia, racing for Movistar team, your winner of the 2015 Tirreno-Adriatico, Nairo Quintana.
Nairo El Condor Quintana viene premiato da Eldo Fanini, vice sindaco di San Benedetto del Tronto, e da Gianfranco Ferroni, responsabile Banca Mediolano, Ascoli Piceno, Macerata e Fermo. Nairo El Condor Quintana!
He's going to go home with the blue jersey, with the white jersey as well. It's hard to believe that he's still in the young rider classification. He's beginning to become very dominant in overall classifications. He's going to take home the 2015 Tirreno-Adriatico trophy. He can throw that in a trophy case that already includes the general classification from the 2014 Giro Italia, the mountains classification jersey from the 2013 Tour de France. He can throw in the Tirreno-Adriatico as well. The beginning of a brilliant career for the young Colombian rider. Once again, Nairo Quintana, your champion.
Della 50ª edizione della Tirreno-Adriatico, sul podio con il secondo classificato Bok Mollema e con il terzo il suo connazionale Rigoberto Urán. Un podio d'eccezione, un grande podio a San Benedetto del Tronto per
to top it off, some Prosecco following the Colombian national anthem.
Importantissimi momenti molto emozionanti con questi 3 corridori.
A great showing for Colombia, by the way. 2 of the top 3 riders in the race, gracing the podium. Of course, the other Bok Mollema out of the Netherlands. Nairo Quintana having a little bit of trouble popping the bottle here.
I primi 3 classificati alla Tirreno-Adriatico con...
But there it is, the victory moment. Once again, your champion Nairo Quintana for Carlton Kirby and Daniel Lloyd. Thank you for joining us for the 2015 Tirreno-Adriatico here on Bein Sports. I'm Gino Fuentes. We'll catch you next time.